Okay, so this week what we're starting off with is building the exhaust in the truck. Now I'm trying to put in a couple hours each night so I can get more done throughout the week. So what's going on is we've got to make a lot of tight bends and things to get through here, because when it comes down, we've got a tight spot between the tranny and the torsion bar, and then I want to run a wide pipe exhaust in this. So literally one's going to go under the tranny and turn, and then it's going to come in 2 to 1 to a expansion chamber and then out to the muffler. Now this is the same exhaust system that I had on my Blazer that worked amazing. Okay, so I still have a lot of the pieces because when I sold the Blazer I stripped the engine, training, a bunch of stuff out of it. So I'm trying to reuse as much as I can. Now I'm going to be running 2.5-inch pipe back to the collector, then it's 4-inch out and then 4-inch through the muffler. Okay, which is really big, but it makes this thing breathe. So, you know me, I reuse everything. So the exhaust, those of you that have been watching me for the last year, you remember the exhaust I built on a 37, the cross-up exhaust and all for the small block? Well, that was all brand new pipe, and it's never been run. So I'm going to start hacking that up because it already has the flanges for these headers on it, and start using the bends. I've got a couple other bends to work with. We're just going to be slicing, making our cuts. I don't have a muffler tubing bender here, so we're going to show you how to make it work, what you can buy at the store and cut up yourself. So we're going to start hacking this exhaust up. Well guys, it's Sunday. I spent all day yesterday. I drove an hour away for a donor truck, but hey, I mean, I got a posi track rear end and a metal fuel cell, 20-gallon fuel cell, haul truck, $300. So hey, for those prices, I'll drive. It's a piece of crap, but it's in the backyard, and we'll start pulling parts of it when we start working on the rear end. So this morning we went to the junkyard. We located some cooling fans, some rims for the rear end, because now that's 5 lug, this thing's 6 lug. So we ended up coming up on some rims, all good. I mean, can't beat it. Dual cooling fans and 2 rims for $50. So sometimes junkyards pay off, a lot of times they don't, but every now and then it's worth the trip. So anyway, what I'm working on now is I got to finish up this exhaust before we can start this roll cage. So now I don't have a exhaust bender, okay? Now, because not many people do, it's expensive, normally muffler shops. Now, if you can't afford to go to a muffler shop, or you're too far out in the country to go to a muffler shop, whatever, this is what I do. I buy U-bends, okay? Something like this will run you 20 bucks, 22 bucks, somewhere around there. Now, what I do with it is I slice it. I can make a 90, or I can cut pie cuts in it, whatever, make whatever angle I need. Okay, this is the way I always do my stuff, just because I prefer to do it myself and route it the way I want it, and you know, it works out. So it takes more time, but for those of you that don't have the cash to go to a muffler shop and pay them a couple $100, you could probably build your own exhaust for $100. Okay, so the biggest thing to remember when you're cutting these is you got to cut, you know, so that the pipe doesn't change diameter. Okay, so if you're cutting in a curve, you're not going to slice it like this. You're going to slice it to the center every time. This is going to keep the diameter the same. And the nice thing about U-bends is you cut them, and you can index them around to get whatever angle you need. So that's what I'm doing now. Is I've got an S-turn on the exhaust that I need to make to get it down to the collector. So I'm going to cut this, spin it, make an S, and then I'll cut it down the length. Now, it can be tough with the portable bandsaw trying to keep your cuts straight. I've seen guys use chop saws. One of the easiest things to use is if you have a vertical bandsaw, you can lay it on the deck and push it through nice clean cuts, but I don't have one. So the one thing to remember is when you're laying pieces out is only cut one piece at a time. Don't try to mock up numerous pieces, mark them all. Cut one piece, get it in where you want, then cut the next piece. You start cutting pieces and it gets confusing and then you can't remember what was supposed to go where. So cut one piece at a time. It takes longer, but in the long run it'll be fast. Alright, so look, even though it's a round piece of pipe, you can still use a square on it. If you let it line up where it's good, it's nice and tight, then you can still mark it. You just have to keep moving it around to get yourself a straight line on it. It's still going to square up. Then you have a straight line to cut. Alright, well, we got everything tacked, we got it out, so now we got it on the bench so we can completely weld it out without having to do it blind under the car.
Seems like only yesterday I held you in my hands, and now I'm looking on your grave.
Alright, well, the exhaust is in. We had to get a little tricky with it because of the torsion bars. Being able to move around the torsion bars and still be able to get to the adjusters for the torsions because we haven't set ride height on this yet. So a little interesting, a little extra work we had to do there, but a few extra bends. But it's in. We reused a ton of exhaust that we had on a previous car. So that's where the muffler came from, the collector came from, all that stuff came from an 83 S10 Blazer I had. That's what this motor's out of. So we got it all in and done. So now we're going to start cleaning up the cut on the floor of the cab. Now we're going to do this so that we can start mocking the cage, and because once that's in, we're not going to be able to cut all these pieces. So we're going to start cutting it first, cleaning all up all the way around, then we'll be able to take and start mocking up the cage. So what we've done is we've taken 2x4 eighth wall tubing and put it up front, and 2x6 eighth wall tubing in the rear. Now that's just what I had. This cage is going to go a lot wider than the frame, so we need places for the feet of the cage to come into, and instead of just welding plates and doing, this is a lot stronger, and I've even kicked them up just a hair for even more strength. So what we'll do is we'll get a stick of tubing out, start pulling measurements, try out this new bender, and bend a few pieces, put it in here. And then if we like everything, I'll go back and gusset all the feet, because that's where it's at. If this thing goes over, all the impact comes down. If those feet don't hold, it crushes in. So that's what we're going to be working on. We're going to go ahead and bend our first tube. So look, the other night we managed to bend up the first tube. Alright, it was not easy as I'd like, but I think I'm figuring out the hang to this bender. You gotta know how far a pipe, from where you start your bend, how far it grows. Meaningly, if you bend it 90 degrees, it's not just going to make a hard 90, you've got the radius of the die. So you need to figure out from the start of the bend to after the bend happens, in top, how far that is, and then you got to adjust for when you're doing 50 degree angles, 60 degree angles. So it's a learning curve, and it was such a debacle the other night trying to figure out this bender. So we managed to bend a halo for the top bar. It's not exactly right. This bender is fighting us 100%. Couldn't figure out why we're not hitting it over and over and over. We've wasted probably 4 sticks of pipe, and this stuff's 20 bucks a stick. And come to find out, we finally figured it out. The bender won't bend to 90 degrees, even though it says it will. It bends to 82 degrees. Doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you got 3 bends, it doesn't add up. So I've got a piece, I believe it's pretty close. I have to cut it now down to make it fit the back bar. So I'm gonna work on that and at least try to get that done tonight before we call it a week. So on to that. Alright, so look, this is where things get interesting. I've checked my bins, it looks about right. Now, I have to figure out, I can't have the top bar to the bottom of this foot is no more than 43 inches. Well, the problem is, how the hell do you figure that out? So, the trick that I'm going to use is I'm going to lay the thing down on the ground, use a drywall square, because I know it should be at a 90-degree angle, 43 inches, and try to figure it out. So, oh yeah, one other thing. I put a 7-degree turn in this to follow the shape of the windshield. Yeah. So it's not going to lay flat. So, good times. Alright. Not to mention, there's no room in this garage, so.
I see that Truman Road Hotel. I say you dressed in black. My words.
Well, that's it for this week. We got the rear hoop in, the halo in, and the 2 down bars. This cage is not what I normally do. It's nowhere near my standard, but you got to work with what you got, and this bender is garbage. So, tool review for this week is the Speedway tube bender. You guys saw me using it, everything. I've seen lots of people use these. It's kind of a newer thing the last few years. Save your money. Add up a couple another $100, buy a JD2 Concepts. I've had one before. It's amazing what you can do with it. With a good degree ring, you'd be surprised what you can do. This here, it's a guessing game the whole time, and it just, I don't know. I'm not happy with it. I emailed Speedway. They're going to take it back and refund my money. So, but I got to get through this first, make the best I can of it, and send it back. But anyway, guys, well, next week I'll be taking a finishing the cage, doing the rear suspension. Next weekend we've got, I'll have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Christmas. So 4 days on this thing. So we should see a lot of progress next week. One thing I want to talk about tonight is, you know, this is a father-son project, or sons in my case. And it's awesome to spread your knowledge to kids and everything else, especially when they're sighted. Now, one of my viewers, we've been talking through Messenger and everything else, and he sent me, his son's name is Xander Price, and Xander is 10 years old, and I'll throw up a picture of him, and he builds his own rat rods out of like erector set stuff and everything else. I mean, this is definitely the kids that we need to be teaching this trade to, because they're the next generation of this. So, anyway guys, Xander, great job, keep it up, bud, keep helping your dad. So guys, alright, well, that's it for tonight, and do me a favor, you know the drill. Like and subscribe, and if you want to see some other videos, there's a link there. Alright guys, see you next week.